skip the pleasantries and get right to the topic. Candice Wiggins did an interview with the San Diego Union Tribune, and in this interview, Candice makes a lot of shocking claims and some strong accusations against the WNBA. Now, in comes the non-WNBA world. And by non-WNBA, I mean people that have never followed the WNBA, never watched a single game, and probably get their dose of WNBA news from Gilbert Arenas. After this article came out, I tweeted a joke about one of the false statements that were made. And my mentions have been in shambles since then. People have said that I'm a bully, and a lot of people said that I'm disregarding Candace's truth. And I don't agree with that. Nobody can deny what Candace dealt with, only she knows that. But when you play in a league that constantly deals with hatred and sexism and bias, you have to be very careful with your words and make sure that you don't perpetuate any false stereotypes that the league already has to combat. And in this interview, Candace states some things as facts that simply aren't true about the WNBA. And this article has hit every nook and cranny of the media. It was on the front page of ESPN.com. Bleacher Report picked it up. I saw BBC News tweet about it. It was on Hot New Hip Hop. So it's been everywhere. And that's why you see so many players and coaches responding with what their personal experiences were with the WNBA, because we don't want people that haven't followed the league to form their opinions and views of an entire league based off of one article.
Oh, hell no!
Of 144 players in the WNBA, 3 are straight?
All 3 of y'all, stop playing with my name.
Now, Candace did a follow-up interview, and she said that she used that figure because that's what it felt like to her. Now, what we're not about to do is allow this article to open the door to asking players about their sexuality. Quite frankly, it's none of your business. However, if a player opens this discussion into their own sexuality, have at it. But otherwise, just stop. Don't ask. I think it's unfair to our fans that have supported us and continue to support us to make a statement like that. Now, I can already hear the non-WNBA people typing up their comments. She's absolutely right. Nobody's in the stands at WNBA games. Look at the NBA viewers compared to the WNBA viewers. We know. But stop comparing us to the NBA. The WNBA is only 20 years old. The NBA has been around for 70 years, and you're trying to compare how established we are. That's unrealistic. Now, if you want to compare us, compare the 20-year-old WNBA to the 20-year-old NBA. And if you research that, you'll see that according to the average attendance, the WNBA and the NBA are on the same plane. And actually in its 20th season, the WNBA had a little bit more attendance on average than the NBA. So stop comparing us and allow us to develop. I've only been in the WNBA for 5 years, and I can't speak to what has happened before I was drafted. So I talked to Tina Thompson and Delisha Moulton-Jones about their experiences in the WNBA. And if you don't know, Tina Thompson was the first draft pick in the history of the WNBA and played for 17 years. And Delisha Moulton-Jones played for 17 years as well. And between the two of them, pretty much cover the entire existence of the WNBA. And here's what they had to say. I agree with them in that, in my experience, the WNBA has promoted femininity. For example, a couple years ago, the league wanted to change our uniforms. And they came up with this concept as the proposed uniform. As you can see, the jerseys have the racerback style. The front has this like mesh material, and the shorts are shorter. So overall, the uniform is more revealing. And what's most important to note is that the sleeves, the knee pads, and the spandex have a leopard print on them. Y'all, this looks like something a little girl would buy at a Libby Lou. Like, tell me this doesn't look like a Lisa Frank design. I mean, I consider myself pretty feminine, but I don't know if I'm wearing leopard print leggings during the game. Maybe that's just me. Okay, so now we're gonna dive deep into the rabbit hole. In this interview, Candace talks a lot about culture. She says that it was toxic and it broke her spirit. She states that she's very feminine and proud to be a woman. And that didn't fit in well with the culture of the WNBA. As a result, she was bullied, harassed, and ended up retiring prematurely because the culture was not conducive to a positive mental state for her. It insinuates that the culture of the WNBA is lesbian and masculine. With that said, on any topic that I choose, I always do a lot of research, and this was no different. While doing my research, I came across this podcast that Candace did about 5 months ago. The podcast is called Candid with Candace, and she interviews people, she talks about different things, but she designated about 6 episodes to talking about her basketball career. Overall, it's about 2.5 to 3 hours. But 2 of those hours focus solely on her WNBA career. And I watched the entire 2 hours. The man that she does the podcast with, at one point asked her the question of what was the most difficult part of being in the WNBA. And this was her response.
You said there were a lot of difficult things about playing in the WNBA. What was the most difficult thing?
The locker room culture for me, just adjusting to that. And I think, like I said, and this is something that I think all professional sports face, but with the WNBA, it's exasperated, is just the fact that you go from amateur to professional and it's a business and there's money and it's a different competition. Like, you're competing against the people that you're playing with, in a sense. You're competing against them. Those are who you're competing against. You're not competing against the other team. You're competing against the player next to you in training camp for a spot. It's like, and then the contracts we're given are breadcrumbs. So we're literally fighting over breadcrumbs, and it just becomes, and then no one's watching, no one cares, no one remembers what happened the day before, no one remembers what happened 8 years ago. Nobody remembers because no one cares. So you can get away with a lot of feelings that you probably you'd have to be held more accountable for if there was more eyes watching. You'd be more accountable for, or you wouldn't care as much if there was more money to go around or if there was more opportunities to go around. So I think early on in my career, when you're young, when you're a rookie, when you've got these opportunities coming at you, it's a lot for some people to take. And I don't blame them because I understand now much better than I did coming in. But it was really ruthless, and it was difficult for me to understand, to really put a finger on this is what it is.
So once again, she talks about culture. But what was intriguing to me was that she uses some of the exact same phrases and quotes that she used in the interview. However, she framed a completely different issue. She says that the culture of the locker room culture of the WNBA is competitive, and it's overly competitive to a fault. We're competing for spots, we're competing for money, we're competing for status, and she says it was extremely difficult for her. So you can deduce what you want from those clips. But for me, the question that it raised was, could the overly competitive culture that she claims we have in the WNBA have caused Candace to perceive what was going on as bullying. And I suggest all of you watch the WNBA portion of her podcast because it gives you a lot of insight into how she thinks and even how she views the WNBA even before she was drafted. And I think it's important to understand her. Now, to wrap up, I talked to Teacher Penatiro about her experience in the WNBA and how she felt about the interview, and her response pretty much sums up how I felt about the entire situation. All I wish is that Candace was a little bit more thoughtful with her words. Because like Tisha said, when you make false statements, it makes people question the validity of everything you're saying, even if it is true. Now with that said, the WNBA takes bullying very seriously. Some teams like to make the rookies dress up in crazy outfits for their first road trip. And we actually got a memo one year about bullying and hazing and how it's unacceptable because of that. Now, I hardly consider that bullying or hazing, but the league thought it was important enough to discuss. So they've definitely left the door open to talk to league representatives if there's ever a problem. And I really hope that Candace has talked to the league. If not during her time in the WNBA, I really hope she does, so that no other player has to have the experience that she did. And then we can focus on building the WNBA instead of tearing it down. So that's all I have for today. Thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe so that you can get notifications when I post episodes. And thanks for watching another episode of Down and Dirty with Devereaux.